I want to tell you something that most people do not talk about. Something that happens behind closed doors, in quiet houses, at kitchen tables where the chairs have been rearranged and one of them has been removed. Not broken, not thrown out, just removed. Quietly, deliberately, as if the person who sat there never existed. I am that person. I am the chair that was removed. My name is Ruth. I am 76 years old. I have 3 grandchildren who do not know my middle name. I have a son who looks through me when I speak. I have a daughter-in-law who rewrote the family story and erased me from every chapter. And I have a daughter who chose her husband's comfort over her mother's existence. I am a grandmother. And my family rejected me. Not with violence, not with shouting or cruelty or any of the things that would make this easier to explain to a stranger. They rejected me with something much worse. They rejected me with politeness, with distance, with carefully worded excuses and holiday cards that arrived late, and phone calls that never came, and invitations that were never extended. They rejected me by slowly, methodically, making me invisible. And the thing about becoming invisible is that it does not happen all at once. It happens in small moments. A dinner you are not invited to, a birthday party you learn about from a photograph on the internet, a family vacation you did not know was happening until someone accidentally mentions it 3 weeks later. Each moment is small enough to dismiss, small enough to explain away, but together, stacked on top of each other like bricks, they build a wall. And one day you wake up and realize you are on the wrong side of it. I woke up on the wrong side of that wall about 4 years ago. And I have been standing here ever since, pressing my hands against the bricks, trying to find a crack, trying to find a way back in. Back to the people I love, back to the family I helped build, back to the grandchildren who used to run to me with their arms open and now walk past me like I am a piece of furniture in a room they have outgrown. I am not angry. I want you to know that from the start. Anger is a luxury that old women cannot afford. Anger takes energy, and I need what little energy I have left for getting through the day. For getting out of bed, for brushing my teeth and making my tea and sitting in my chair by the window and watching the world go on without me. What I am confused and sad and tired in a way that sleep does not fix, because I do not understand what I did. I have searched my memory, every conversation, every holiday, every moment, and I cannot find the crime. I cannot find the thing that made my family decide I was not worth keeping. I have turned my life inside out looking for the answer, and all I have found is love. Just love. That is all I ever gave them. And somehow, it was not enough. This is my story. The story of a grandmother who was erased, not from a photograph, but from a family. And I am telling it because I believe that every erased person deserves to have their story heard. Even if the people who erased them never listen, I need to go back, way back, before the rejection, before the silence, before the wall was built. I need to take you to the time when my family was still a family, when we were still connected, when the word grandmother still meant something in our house. I was born in 1948 in a small town in the middle of the country, the kind of town where everybody knew everybody, and the church was the center of everything, and the seasons changed slowly, like pages turning in a very long book. My parents were simple people. My father worked at the grain elevator. My mother cleaned houses for the wealthier families in town. They were not educated, but they were wise in the way that people are wise when they have lived close to the ground their whole lives. My mother taught me two things that I carried with me into adulthood. The first was how to cook. She could take nothing, a handful of flour, some lard, a few vegetables from the garden, and turn it into something that tasted like love. She cooked the way some people pray, with devotion and patience and the quiet belief that what she was creating mattered, even if nobody said so. The second thing she taught me was this. She said, "Ruth, a family is not something you are given. It is something you build. And once you build it, you protect it with everything you have. Because the world will try to pull it apart. People will try to take pieces of it for themselves. And if you are not careful, you will wake up one day and find that the thing you spent your whole life building has been dismantled by the people standing inside it." I did not understand that when I was young. I understand it now. I married a man named Walter when I was 22. Walter was a mechanic. He had big hands and a quiet voice and a way of looking at you that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He was not a man of many words, but the words he did say were always true. He did not know how to lie. It simply was not in him, and in a world full of people who say things they do not mean, Walter was a relief. We had 2 children. My son Gerald came first, born in 1972, 3 years after our wedding. He was a large baby, 9 pounds, 2 ounces, and he came into the world screaming like he was already upset about something. He never really stopped. Gerald was a child with big emotions. He laughed loudly, he cried loudly, he loved loudly, and he fought loudly, and he lived every day at full volume. He was exhausting and wonderful and completely impossible to ignore. My daughter Linda came 4 years later. She was the opposite of Gerald. Quiet, careful, watchful. She had Walter's temperament, calm on the surface, deep underneath. She observed the world before she participated in it. She would stand at the edge of a room and study the people in it before deciding whether to enter. She was cautious with her heart. She gave it slowly, carefully, piece by piece, like someone handing out valuables from behind a locked door. Walter and I raised those children the way my parents raised me, with structure and love and the belief that family comes first. Always, before work, before friends, before comfort, before pride. Family first, that was the rule. The only rule that really mattered. We ate dinner together every night. Every single night. For 20 years. No exceptions. No excuses. The 4 of us at the kitchen table, passing plates, sharing food, talking about the day. It did not matter if Gerald had baseball practice, or Linda had a school project, or Walter was tired from 12 hours under the hood of someone's car. Dinner was sacred. Dinner was the place where we became a family again after a day of being separate people in a separate world. I cooked those dinners the way my mother taught me. With devotion, with patience, with the quiet belief that feeding my family was not just a chore, but a calling. I made pot roast and meatloaf and fried chicken and biscuits and gravy and cornbread and stew. I made cakes from scratch and pies with crusts that took an hour to roll out. I stood at that stove for hours, my feet aching, my back sore, sweat on my forehead, and I never once thought of it as a burden. Because it was not. It was my purpose. It was how I said I love you when words were not enough. Walter died when he was 58. A stroke. quick, like a light being switched off. One moment he was sitting in his recliner watching the evening news, and the next moment he was gone. I found him when I came in from the kitchen with his coffee. His eyes were open, but there was nothing behind them. The man I had loved for 36 years had left without saying goodbye. Gerald was 28 when his father died. Linda was 24. They came home for the funeral. They stood beside me at the grave. They held my hands. Gerald cried, loud, messy, uncontrolled crying, the way he did everything. Linda stood straight and still, her face pale, her eyes dry, holding it together the way she always did, keeping her pain behind that locked door. After the funeral, Gerald went back to his life. He had a job in the city, something in sales, commission-based, unpredictable. He had an apartment and a girlfriend and a life that was moving fast. He called me every week at first, then every other week, then once a month. The pattern was familiar. The pattern was inevitable. Linda stayed closer. She lived about 40 minutes away in a small town not unlike the one we grew up in. She had married a man named Philip, a quiet, serious man who worked in insurance and wore the same expression every day, regardless of whether the news was good or bad. Philip was polite. He was always polite, but there was something underneath the politeness that I could never quite reach. A coolness, a distance, like a window that is always closed, even in summer. I tried to like Philip. I really did. When Linda first brought him home, I cooked his favorite meal, steak and potatoes, medium rare, just the way he liked. I set the table nicely. I put flowers in a vase. I wanted him to feel welcome. I wanted him to know that anyone who loved my daughter was welcome in my home. He ate the steak. He complimented the cooking. He shook my hand when he left, and I felt nothing from him. No warmth, no connection, no sense that I was anything more than a formality he was getting through. Over the years, Philip remained exactly the same. Polite, distant, present but not there. He came to holiday dinners and sat in his chair and answered questions with short, careful sentences and checked his watch when he thought nobody was looking. He never called me Mom. He never called me Ruth. He called me Mrs. Patterson. Even after 10 years, even after Linda had my grandchildren, he still said, "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. Good to see you, Mrs. Patterson. Dinner was lovely, Mrs. Patterson." Each time he said it, I felt the window close a little more. But I had Linda, my quiet, careful girl. She was the one who remembered birthdays. She was the one who drove the 40 minutes to visit me on weekends. She was the one who brought the grandchildren, Emma and Jack, and let them run through my house and eat my cookies and play in my garden and call me Grandma Ruthie. Grandma Ruthie. Those two words were everything to me. They were proof that my life had continued past Walter's death, that I was still connected to something living and growing and full of possibility. Those children, Emma with her wild curls and her fearless laugh, Jack with his serious eyes and his collection of rocks that he carried in his pockets everywhere, were my reasons for getting up in the morning. I loved those children the way I loved breathing. Without thought, without effort, without conditions. I loved them the way only a grandmother can, with all the experience of a mother but none of the exhaustion, with the patience that comes from knowing how fast it goes, with the tenderness that comes from understanding, for the first time, that these small humans are not just your grandchildren. They are your legacy. They are proof that you were here. Gerald married a woman named Diane when he was 34. Diane was bright and energetic and successful in a way that made me feel both proud and uneasy. She worked in finance. She wore tailored suits and carried a leather briefcase and spoke in a language full of words I did not understand. Portfolios, investments, quarterly returns, market projections. She was confident, capable, in charge. When Gerald brought her home to meet me, Diane walked through the door and looked around my house with an expression I will never forget. It was not unkindness, it was an assessment. She was measuring the house, the worn carpet, the old furniture, the kitchen with its chipped counters and its 20-year-old stove, and she was doing calculations in her head, adding it all up, and the total, I could tell from her face, did not impress her. She hugged me briefly. One arm, quick squeeze, step back. "It is so nice to finally meet you," she said. Her smile was the kind that has been practiced until it looks genuine. But I have been reading faces for 76 years. I know the difference between a smile that starts in the heart and a smile that starts in the mirror. Gerald and Diane had a son, my third grandchild. They named him Oliver. He was born with Gerald's big lungs and Diane's sharp eyes, and he was beautiful. Every grandchild is beautiful. But Oliver was a grandchild I rarely got to hold. Because Diane had rules. Diane had systems. Diane had opinions about everything. How a baby should be held, what a baby should eat, when a baby should sleep, who a baby should be around, and those opinions, delivered with the confidence of someone who has read every book on the subject, did not include much room for a grandmother with chipped counters and a 20-year-old stove. "We have Oliver on a very specific schedule," Diane told me during one of my visits, "so it is better if we plan ahead when you want to see him. We cannot do spontaneous visits." Spontaneous visits, as if a grandmother dropping by to see her grandchild was an inconvenience, as if love needed an appointment. I did not argue. I nodded. I smiled. I planned ahead. I called before I came. I asked permission to hold my own grandchild. I followed every rule Diane set, because I believed that compliance would earn me access. That if I was patient enough, accommodating enough, quiet enough, the door would eventually open wider. It did not. It stayed exactly where Diane wanted it, cracked open just enough to let me see inside, but never wide enough to let me in. And Gerald, my loud, emotional, impossible to ignore son, said nothing. He stood beside his wife and nodded along and followed her lead, the way he had followed her lead in everything since the day they met. Gerald, who had never been quiet about anything in his life, became quiet about this. About me. About the rules. About the distance that was growing between us like ivy on a wall, beautiful from the outside, destructive underneath. That was the beginning. The slow, silent beginning of my rejection. It did not start with a big moment. It started with a schedule, with planned visits and careful rules and polite smiles that never reached the eyes. It started with a daughter-in-law who measured my worth and found it wanting, and a son who loved his wife more than he loved his courage. The first holiday I was excluded from was Thanksgiving. Oliver was 2 years old. I had been planning for weeks. I was going to make the turkey the way my mother taught me, with sage and rosemary and a prayer whispered over the bird before it went into the oven. I was going to set the table with my good dishes, the ones Walter had bought me for our 20th anniversary. I was going to invite everyone, Gerald and Diane and Oliver, Linda and Philip and Emma and Jack, the whole family, under one roof, the way it should be. I called Gerald in early November to discuss the plans. Tommy, I said, I still called him Tommy sometimes, the nickname from childhood that he pretended to hate but secretly loved, I am starting to plan Thanksgiving. What time should I expect you? There was that pause. The pause I had come to recognize. The pause that meant Diane was in the room, or Diane had already made a decision, or Diane's opinion was about to be delivered through Gerald's mouth. Actually, Mom, Diane and I were talking, and we thought we would host Thanksgiving this year. At our place, she has been wanting to try this new recipe, and she has already invited her parents, and we thought it would be easier since Oliver is still so little and traveling is hard for him. Traveling. They lived 50 minutes away. 50 minutes. Oliver traveled farther than that to go to his pediatrician. I see, I said. Well, that sounds nice. What time should I come? Another pause. Longer this time. The thing is, Mom, Diane's parents are coming, and her sister and her husband, and the house is kind of small, and she does not want it to be too crowded. So we were thinking, maybe you could do your own thing this year, and we could get together the weekend after. Just us. My own thing. On Thanksgiving. My own thing. I held the phone away from my face for a moment because I did not want Gerald to hear the sound that came out of me. It was not a cry. It was more like a gasp, the kind of sound you make when something hits you in the chest and pushes all the air out. Of course, I said when I brought the phone back. Of course, sweetheart. You enjoy your Thanksgiving. We will get together another time. I called Linda afterward. I needed to hear a voice that wanted me. Mom, we are going to Philip's parents' house for Thanksgiving, Linda said. They have been asking for months, and Philip really wants to go. But how about you come to our place the Sunday before? I will make a small dinner. Just us. Just us. The consolation prize. The we cannot include you in the real thing, but here's a smaller version to keep you quiet. I said yes. Because what else could I say? No, I do not want your leftover Sunday dinner. I want to be at the real table, with the real turkey, with the real family. I could not say that, because saying that would mean admitting what was happening, and admitting what was happening would mean confronting it, and confronting it would mean risking the little I had left. The crumbs, the Sundays before, the planned visits with advance notice, the scraps of access that Diane and Philip allowed me, so I ate my crumbs. And I smiled, and I told myself it was enough. Thanksgiving came. I spent it alone, in my kitchen, at my table, with a turkey breast I had bought from the grocery store, not a whole turkey, because a whole turkey for one person is the saddest thing in the world. I cooked the breast with sage and rosemary the way my mother taught me. I set one plate, one glass, one fork, one napkin. I sat down and I said grace, the way Walter and I used to, and I thanked God for my blessings. But the prayer felt hollow. Because the biggest blessing I had ever known, my family, was scattered across the state, sitting at other people's tables, eating other people's food, laughing at other people's jokes. And I was here, alone, with a turkey breast and a prayer and a silence so thick I could feel it on my skin. After Thanksgiving, things got worse. Not quickly, slowly. The way a river erodes a bank, you do not see it happening day by day, but one morning you look and the ground is gone. Gerald and Diane started spending every holiday with her family. Christmas, Easter, 4th of July. Diane's parents became the default. Diane's family became the center, and I was pushed to the edges further and further until I could barely see the circle I used to be part of. I saw Oliver less and less. The scheduled visits became monthly, then every 6 weeks, then quarterly. Each time I saw him, he was bigger, changed, more like Diane in his manners and his expressions. He would look at me with curiosity, the way you look at someone you recognize but cannot quite place. And each time, it took him a moment to remember who I was. "Say hi to Grandma," Gerald would prompt. "Hi, Grandma," Oliver would say, obediently, blankly. The way you say hello to a stranger your parents tell you to greet? He did not know me. My own grandchild did not know me, not because I did not love him, not because I did not try, but because the space between us had been managed so carefully, so deliberately, that there was no room for a real relationship to grow. I was a name on a birthday card, a face on a screen, a concept, not a person. That realization that I was a concept to my own grandchild was one of the most painful moments of my life, more painful than Walter's death in some ways, because Walter's absence was not a choice. Walter did not choose to leave me. He was taken. But this erasure, this slow deletion, was chosen by my son, by his wife, by the family I had helped create. They chose to make me a stranger to my own grandson. And the worst part, the part that kept me up at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, was that they did not think they were doing anything wrong. They were not cruel. They were not vindictive. They were just busy, just prioritizing, just making practical decisions about schedules and distances and time. And in their practical calculations, I kept coming up as optional, not essential, not important, just a nice thing to do when everything else was taken care of. I was the last item on the list, the one that gets pushed to next week, and then the week after, and then next month, until eventually it falls off the list entirely and nobody notices it is gone. Meanwhile, Linda's world was changing too. Philip had gotten a promotion, a bigger job in a bigger city 2 hours further away. They were moving. Linda told me over the phone, her voice careful and apologetic, the way you deliver news that you know will hurt. "It is a great opportunity for Philip, Mom, and the schools are better for the kids. We will be further away, but we will still visit. I promise. I promise." The words that children use when they mean well but cannot see the future. The words that are sincere in the moment but dissolve under the pressure of daily life and new routines, and the simple, brutal fact that distance makes forgetting easier. They moved. Linda and Philip and Emma and Jack packed up their house and drove 2 hours further away, and the 40-minute visits became 2.5-hour trips, and the weekend dinners became once-a-season events, and my grandchildren's voices on the phone became less frequent and less familiar, like a radio station fading as you drive out of range. Emma was 12 by then. Jack was 10. They were at the age where grandparents become irrelevant, not through malice, but through the natural self-absorption of childhood, giving way to the self-absorption of adolescence. They had friends and activities and screens and 1,000 things competing for their attention. A grandmother 2.5 hours away could not compete with any of it. I tried. I sent letters, real letters, on paper, with stamps. I wrote about my garden, about the birds that came to my feeder, about the cat that had adopted me by showing up on my porch every morning and refusing to leave. I drew little pictures in the margins, flowers and stars and smiley faces, because I wanted the letters to feel personal, to feel like me, to feel like something a grandmother would send, not a stranger. Emma wrote back twice. Short notes on lined paper, her handwriting rushed and uneven, the words polite but hollow. "Thank you for the letter, Grandma. School is good. I like my new room. Love, Emma." Jack never wrote back. Linda mentioned once, casually, that Jack was not much of a writer. "He is more of a screen kid, Mom. You know how boys are." I did not know how boys are. Not this kind of boy. Not the kind who has a grandmother who loves him desperately and sends him letters with hand-drawn flowers and does not even get a sentence in return. I did not know that kind of boy. But I was learning. The rejection came in stages. Like a disease that progresses so slowly you do not realize you are sick until you can barely stand. Stage 1 was the holidays, taken from me one by one, handed to other families, other traditions, other grandmothers who lived closer or had bigger houses or fit more neatly into the plans. Stage 2 was the visits, reduced, rescheduled, canceled, always with a reason, always with an apology, always with the promise of next time. Next time became the most dangerous phrase in my vocabulary, because next time never came. It just moved, like a horizon, always ahead of me, always out of reach. Stage 3 was the phone calls, shorter, less frequent, more distracted. I could hear the impatience in their voices sometimes, not cruelty, just impatience. The impatience of busy people talking to someone who has nothing urgent to say. Because what could I say that was urgent? My garden grew tomatoes. My cat slept on the porch. I made soup for dinner. None of it mattered in a world of promotions and school projects and weekend plans. None of it was worth interrupting their day for. Stage 4 was the information. I stopped being told things. I found out about Emma's school play from a photograph on the internet 3 weeks after it happened. I found out about Jack's baseball trophy from a comment Linda made in passing. I found out about Oliver's 4th birthday party, a party I was not invited to, because Gerald accidentally sent me a group text meant for Diane's family, a text that said, "Party at 2 p.m. Saturday. Bring swimsuits and sunscreen. Can't wait to celebrate our little man." Our little man, my grandson, having a birthday party with swimsuits and sunscreen and people who were invited. And I was not one of them. I stared at that text for a long time. I read it over and over the way you press on a bruise to confirm that it hurts. It hurt. Every word, every exclamation point, every cheerful, casual word of a celebration that I was not part of. Gerald called me later that day. He had realized the mistake. "Mom, I am sorry about that text. It was meant for Diane's group chat. The party is really just a small thing. Just some kids from Oliver's preschool and Diane's family. Nothing big. Nothing big. His son's birthday party. Nothing big." "It is fine, Gerald," I said. "I hope he has a wonderful birthday. I will send a gift. You do not have to. I want to." I sent a gift, a wooden toy truck I had found at a craft fair, handmade, painted blue, with wheels that really turned. The kind of toy Walter would have loved. The kind of toy that meant something, that had warmth and thought and history in it. I never found out if Oliver liked it. Gerald did not mention it. No thank you. No photograph. No Oliver loved the truck, Mom. Just silence. The gift disappeared into the house the way I had disappeared from the family. Absorbed. Forgotten. Unacknowledged. The moment that broke me, really broke me, the way a bone breaks, clean and sharp and all the way through, happened on a Wednesday afternoon in March. An ordinary day. Gray sky. Cold wind. The kind of day that does not seem significant until it is. I was at the grocery store. I was in the cereal aisle, which is a ridiculous place for a life-changing moment, but life does not care about setting. I was reaching for a box of oatmeal when I heard a voice behind me. Ruth? Ruth Patterson? I turned around. It was Carol Benton, an old friend, or rather an old acquaintance. Someone I had known from church years ago. We had not spoken in a long time, but she recognized me, and she smiled and she put her hand on my arm in that warm way that women of a certain age do when they are genuinely happy to see you. Carol, how are you? I am good, I am good. How are you? How is your family? They are fine. Everyone is fine. She leaned in slightly, conspiratorial. I saw your daughter-in-law's post the other day. The one about the family reunion? It looked like such a wonderful time. How many people were there? I felt the floor shift under my feet. Not literally, but something moved. Something fundamental. Family reunion? I repeated. Carol's smile faltered. She could see it on my face. The confusion, the blankness, the dawning realization that I had no idea what she was talking about. Oh, she said, I saw some photos online. Diane posted them. It looked like a big gathering. Your son, your daughter, the grandchildren. I assumed you were there. My son, my daughter, my grandchildren, a family reunion, photographs online, and I was hearing about it from a woman in the cereal aisle at the grocery store. Of course, I said. Yes, it was lovely. I must have missed the post. I smiled. Carol smiled. We said our goodbyes. She walked away with her cart, and I stood there in the cereal aisle holding a box of oatmeal, feeling something inside me shatter. A family reunion. My family. Without me. I left the grocery store without buying anything. I drove home. I sat in my car in the driveway for a long time, my hands on the steering wheel, my eyes fixed on nothing. And then I went inside and I opened my computer, the old laptop Gerald had given me 2 Christmases ago so I could stay connected, and I found Diane's page. There they were. The photographs. Dozens of them. My entire family, gathered in what looked like a park. A sunny day. Long tables covered with food. Balloons. A banner that said Patterson Family Day. Streamers and games and children running. I scrolled through the pictures slowly, the way you walk through a room where something terrible has happened. My heart was pounding. My hands were cold. There was Gerald standing at a grill, flipping burgers, laughing at something someone had said. There was Diane in a sundress, holding Oliver on her hip, posing for the camera with her perfect smile. There was Linda, my quiet, careful girl, sitting at a table with Philip, Emma, and Jack. All of them. There. Together. And there was Diane's mother, and Diane's father, and Diane's sister, and people I did not recognize, cousins, maybe, or friends. A whole community of people gathered under a banner that bore my husband's name, Patterson Family Day, my family's name, Walter's name, claimed by a woman who called me Mrs. Patterson and measured my house with her eyes and decided I was not enough. I was not in a single photograph. Not one. Because I was not there. Because I was not invited. Because no one, not Gerald, not Linda, not anyone, had picked up the phone and said, "Mom, we are having a family reunion. You should be there." They had gathered. They had celebrated. They had used my family's name. And they had done it without me. I closed the laptop. I sat very still. I could hear my own heartbeat. I could hear the clock in the hallway. I could hear the silence of the house, the same silence I had been hearing for years, but now it sounded different. Now it had a name. The name was rejection. Clear, undeniable, absolute rejection. I had been making excuses for years. Years. He is busy. She is difficult. The distance is too far. The timing is bad. The house is too small. The schedule does not allow it. I had been filing down the edges of every hurt, smoothing them out, finding explanations that protected me from the truth. Because the truth was too sharp. The truth would draw blood. But there it was, on a screen, in color, with balloons and streamers and a banner. The truth that my family had rejected me, not because I was cruel or difficult or toxic, but because I was old and inconvenient and unnecessary and easy to leave out. Because leaving me out did not cause a scene. Leaving me out did not create conflict. Leaving me out was the path of least resistance, and my family, like water, always chose the easiest path. I picked up the phone. I called Gerald. He answered on the second ring, cheerful and unsuspecting. "Hey, Mom. What is up?" "I saw the photographs, Gerald." Silence. The kind of silence that tells you the other person knows exactly what you are talking about and was hoping you would never find out. "What photographs?" Patterson Family Day. The reunion. The one you had without me. More silence. Then, carefully, Mom, it was not a reunion. It was just a casual thing. Diane organized it for her side of the family, and we invited Linda and Philip because they were in town, and it was not. There was a banner, Gerald, with our name on it. Patterson Family Day. That is my name. That is your father's name. He did not respond. "Were you ever going to tell me?" I asked. Or was I just going to find out from a stranger in the grocery store? "Mom, do you know what that feels like, Gerald? To find out that your family had a celebration with your name on the banner and you were not there? Do you know what that feels like?" "I am sorry, Mom. I should have told you. I should have invited you." Diane she was worried about the logistics, the parking, the food quantities, Oliver's nap schedule. My grandson's nap was more important than his grandmother's presence at a family reunion named after her dead husband. "I want to ask you something, Gerald, and I want you to answer me honestly. Not carefully, not diplomatically, honestly." "Okay. Am I part of this family?" "Of course you are, Mom. Of course. Then why does it not feel like it? Why do I find out about family events from strangers? Why do I see my grandchild 4 times a year? Why was I not at that reunion, Gerald? Why?" He was quiet. I could hear him breathing. I could hear the machinery of his mind working, trying to find the right words, the safe words, the words that would end this conversation without requiring him to change anything. "Things are going to be different," he said. "I promise." I had heard that before. I had heard it so many times that the words had lost their shape. They were just sounds now, empty sounds that meant nothing. "Do not promise me, Gerald. Show me." I hung up. And then I called Linda. Linda answered with her usual careful voice. "Hi, Mom." "Linda, I know about the reunion." She did not pretend not to know what I was talking about. That was the one small mercy. She did not insult me with confusion or denial. "I wanted to tell you, Mom. I almost called you 3 times. But Diane said it was her event and she was managing the guest list, and Philip said I should not get involved, and I did not want to cause a problem." "You did not want to cause a problem," I repeated. "I know how that sounds. I know. Do you, Linda?" Do you know how it sounds when your daughter tells you she did not invite you to a family event because she did not want to cause a problem? Do you know what that makes me? That makes me the problem, Linda. Your own mother. The problem. She was crying. I could hear it. Quiet, careful crying, the way Linda did everything. I am sorry, Mom. I am so sorry. I am sorry too, I said. I am sorry that I spent my whole life teaching you that family comes first, and you learned a different lesson. I did not yell. I did not accuse. I just told the truth, the way Walter used to. Simply, clearly, without decoration. And then I hung up, and I sat in my chair by the window, and I watched the street and the sky and the world going on without me, and I let the tears come, not the polite kind, the real kind, the kind that comes from the deepest part of you, from the place where you keep the things you love most and protect most fiercely and grieve most completely when they are taken from you. I cried for my husband, who was not there to protect me. I cried for my children, who had become strangers wearing familiar faces. I cried for my grandchildren, who were growing up without knowing the woman who would have given them the world if anyone had let her. I cried for myself, for the years of cooking and cleaning and caring and giving and loving and hoping and waiting, for the years of making myself smaller, quieter, more convenient, more invisible, and then I stopped crying. And I straightened up, and I said out loud to the empty room, no more. No more love. Love is not something you can turn off like a faucet. It flows whether you want it to or not. But no more silence. No more excuses. No more pretending that crumbs are enough. No more smiling when I am breaking. No more saying I understand when I do not understand at all. No more being the chair that gets quietly removed from the table. I wrote a letter, not a long one, not a dramatic one, just an honest one. I wrote it by hand, the way I wrote everything, because there is something about putting pen to paper that forces you to mean what you say. You cannot delete a handwritten word. You have to cross it out. And crossing something out means admitting you wrote it, means admitting you thought it. There is accountability in ink that does not exist on a screen. I wrote one letter and made 3 copies, one for Gerald, one for Linda, one for myself, so I would remember what I said and never let anyone convince me I said something different. Dear Gerald and Linda, I have spent the past 4 years watching my family shrink. Not in size, you are all still there, healthy and growing and building lives that I am proud of, even from this distance. My family has shrunk in a different way. It has shrunk in the space it has for me. I do not know when it started. Maybe it started so gradually that none of us noticed, or maybe you noticed and chose not to say anything, the way people choose not to mention a crack in the wall because fixing it would require tearing things apart. But the crack is there, and it has been growing, and I can no longer pretend I do not see it. I am your mother. I carried you. I fed you. I held you when you were sick and cheered for you when you succeeded and caught you when you fell. I spent 25 years in a kitchen at a stove making meals for a family that I loved more than my own life. I buried your father and I kept going. Because that is what mothers do. We keep going. Even when the road gets dark. Even when the people we are walking toward stop looking back to see if we are still following. I am still following. But I am tired. And I am hurt. and I deserve to say so. I am not asking to be the center of your lives. I know my place has changed. I know you have spouses and children and careers and responsibilities that have nothing to do with me. I accept that. I have always accepted that. But I am asking to be included, not as an afterthought, not as a name on a list that gets crossed off when the numbers get too high, not as a planned visit with 2 weeks' notice and a time limit. I am asking to be included the way a mother should be included, naturally, automatically, without question. The way Diane's mother is included, the way Philip's parents are included, with warmth and regularity and the simple assumption that of course she should be there. Of course. I found out about your family reunion from a stranger in the grocery store, a reunion with your father's name on the banner, a gathering of your family, my family, that I was not invited to, and I cannot describe to you what that felt like, because there are no words for it. There are no words for the feeling of being erased from your own story, of standing outside a circle that was drawn with your blood and being told there is no room. I love you both. I love your spouses, even when loving them is difficult. I love my grandchildren, Emma, Jack, and Oliver, with a ferocity that surprises me, because I did not know I had that much love left. I thought I had used it all up on you. But love, I have learned, is not something that runs out. It is something that multiplies. And my love for those children is so vast and so aching and so unused that it keeps me awake at night. I want to know my grandchildren, not as a name on a birthday card, not as a face on a screen. I want to know what makes Emma laugh, and what makes Jack worried, and what Oliver dreams about when he closes his eyes. I want to be the kind of grandmother who is woven into their lives, not a frayed thread hanging at the edge of the fabric. I will not beg. I have too much of your father in me for that. Walter never begged for anything, and I will not start now. But I will say this clearly, one time, without softening or apologizing. I deserve better. And so do my grandchildren. They deserve a grandmother, a real one, not a concept, not a scheduled appointment, a real, present, available grandmother who bakes cookies and tells stories and knows their shoe size and their favorite color and the names of their friends. You decide what happens next. I have said what I needed to say. The door is open. It has always been open. It will always be open. But I will no longer stand in the doorway, calling into the dark, hoping someone will hear me. I will be here in this house, in this kitchen, in this chair, whenever you are ready, with all the love I have left, and I have so much left. Mom. I mailed the letters on a Friday morning. I walked to the post office. I did not drive because I wanted the walk. I needed the air. I needed to feel the ground under my feet and the sun on my face and the simple physical reality of being a person in the world who still takes up space, who still matters, even if her family has forgotten. The walk was 2 miles. My knees ached. My hip protested. But I kept walking because stopping felt like giving up. And I was not giving up. I was standing up. There is a difference, a big, important, life-changing difference. I dropped the letters into the mailbox. I heard them land with a soft thud at the bottom. And I stood there for a moment, my hand still on the handle, and I whispered, "Go find them. Go remind them who I am." Then I walked home. And I waited. Gerald called first. 3 days later. It was a Tuesday evening. I was in the kitchen washing dishes. One plate, one cup, one fork. The dishes of a woman who eats alone. Mom. His voice was different, raw, stripped of the cheerfulness and the carefulness and the practiced ease. Just his voice. Gerald's real voice, the one I had not heard in years. I got your letter. I know. I read it 4 times. And then I read it to Diane. I said nothing. I waited. She cried, Mom. I was not expecting that. I was expecting defensiveness. Explanations. The same careful, managed response that Diane always gave. But crying, that was new. She said she did not realize, Gerald continued. She said she thought you were fine. She thought you preferred your space. She thought what was convenient to think, Gerald. We all do. He was quiet. Then he said, You are right. She was wrong. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Those words, simple, honest, undecorated, landed on me like rain on dry ground. I absorbed them. I let them soak in. I did not rush to forgive. I did not rush to make him feel better. I just let the words sit between us the way they needed to. What are you going to do about it? I asked. I am going to bring Oliver to see you this Saturday. Just me and him. No schedule, no time limit, no nap time excuse. We will stay as long as you want us to stay. And Diane? She wants to come too, but she wants to call you first. She wants to apologize. Properly. I closed my eyes. I felt something in my chest that I had not felt in a long time. Not hope. I was too cautious for hope. But possibility. The faintest, most fragile possibility that the wall might have a door in it, and that someone was finally reaching for the handle. Tell her she can call, I said. I will answer. Diane called the next evening. The conversation was awkward and careful and full of long pauses. But she said the words, the real words, not the polished, practiced ones. I am sorry, Ruth, she said. And she called me Ruth, not Mrs. Patterson. Ruth. For the first time in 10 years. I did not see what I was doing. Or maybe I saw it and I told myself it was fine. I told myself you were independent, that you liked your space, that you did not want to be bothered. And none of that was true, was it? No, I said. None of it was true. I want Oliver to know you. I want him to really know you, not just your name. I want that too. Can we start over? I thought about that for a moment. Start over, as if the past 4 years could be erased with 2 words. They could not. The pain could not be undone. The missed birthdays, the uninvited holidays, the family reunion with my dead husband's name on the banner, none of that could be taken back. But starting over does not mean erasing. It means beginning again. From where you are. With what you have. With the scars and the memories and the knowledge that things were broken and might break again, but that you are willing to try anyway. Yes, I said, we can start over. Linda called the day after that. She did not cry. She did not apologize with words. She apologized with something better. She apologized with action. Mom, I am coming home this weekend. I am bringing Emma and Jack. We are going to spend the whole weekend. Friday to Sunday. And I told Philip that this is not negotiable. You do not have to. Yes, I do. I should have done this years ago. I should have stood up and said, my mother is coming to the reunion. I should have said, my mother is coming to every holiday. I should have said a lot of things I was too afraid to say because I did not want to make waves. But you know what, Mom? Some waves need to be made. I smiled. My quiet, careful girl, finally making waves. Walter would have been proud. That weekend was the first time in over a year that my house had more than one person in it. Linda arrived Friday afternoon with Emma and Jack. Gerald and Oliver came Saturday morning. Diane came too, carrying a casserole she had made herself. It was slightly burned on the edges, and she apologized for it 3 times, and I told her it was perfect. And it was. Not the casserole. The casserole was mediocre at best. But the gesture, the effort. The fact that Diane, who had spent 10 years measuring and calculating and keeping me at a distance, had stood in her kitchen and made a casserole for her mother-in-law. That was perfect. The house was full again. Not the way it used to be, not with Walter in his recliner and the children fighting over the last piece of pie. It was different. Quieter in some ways, louder in others. Emma was a teenager now, glued to her phone but willing to put it down when I asked her to help me in the kitchen. Jack was tall and shy and still had those serious eyes, and he spent most of the afternoon examining my garden and asking questions about the tomatoes. Oliver, my Oliver, the grandson I barely knew, spent the morning hiding behind Gerald's legs, peeking at me with cautious curiosity. But by the afternoon, he was sitting on my lap. I do not know how it happened. Children are like that. They sense things that adults have forgotten how to sense. They know when someone loves them. They know when a lap is safe. And Oliver, despite barely knowing me, climbed up and settled against my chest and said, "Grandma, tell me a story, Grandma." Not prompted, rehearsed Grandma. A real one, spontaneous, natural. His word, not Gerald's. I wrapped my arms around him. I smelled his hair, that sweet, warm smell that I remembered from my own children. And I told him a story about a man named Walter who had big hands and a quiet voice and who could fix anything in the world except the things that broke inside people's hearts. Oliver listened. His breathing slowed. His weight grew heavier against me. And by the end of the story, he was asleep. Right there on my lap, in my chair, in my house, my grandson, asleep in my arms. The way it should have been all along. That was 14 months ago. And I want to tell you what has changed. Not because I want you to think that everything is perfect now. It is not. Scars do not disappear because the wound has closed. They stay. They remind you. They ache when the weather changes, or when a memory catches you off guard, or when you see a family in the grocery store, a grandmother holding her grandchild's hand, and you remember the years when your own hand was empty. But things are better. Genuinely, measurably, undeniably better. Gerald brings Oliver to see me every 2 weeks now, not scheduled with military precision, not squeezed between other obligations, just easy, natural visits. He drops Oliver off in the morning, and we spend the day together. I teach him to bake. I showed him the garden. I tell him stories about Walter and about my mother and about the way things used to be when the world was slower and quieter and people sat on porches and talked to each other instead of staring at screens. Oliver calls me Grandma Ruthie now, the same name Emma and Jack use. He says it easily, the way you say a word you have known your whole life. And every time I hear it, every single time, something inside me mends. Not fully, but a little. Enough. Diane is different from me now. She is not warm. I do not think warmth is in her nature, and I have made peace with that. Some people show love with hugs and home cooking. Others show it by trying. Diane tries. She calls me Ruth. She asks about my health. She sends me photographs of Oliver without being asked. She invited me to Thanksgiving last year, at her table, in her house, with a seat that had my name on it. I sat at that table and I looked around at the food and the faces and the noise and the life, and I thought about that Thanksgiving 4 years ago, when I sat alone in my kitchen with a grocery store turkey breast and a prayer that felt hollow. The distance between those two Thanksgivings was not measured in years. It was measured in words, in the words of a letter that I almost did not write, in the courage it took to say, "I deserve better." Linda comes home every month now, sometimes with the kids, sometimes without. She and I sit in the kitchen and talk, really talk, the way we used to, before Philip and distance and busy lives built walls between us. She tells me about her work, her worries, her marriage. I listen. I offer advice when she asks for it, and silence when she does not. We are relearning each other, like two people who spoke the same language once and forgot some of the words and are now remembering them, one conversation at a time. Emma is 14 now. She is at the age where everything is either the best thing ever or the worst thing ever, and nothing in between. But she texts me almost every day. Short messages, mostly a photograph of her lunch, a complaint about her math teacher, a song she wants me to listen to. Small things, ordinary things, the things that grandmothers are supposed to know. And I know them now. Jack is 12. He is still serious, still quiet, still carrying that collection of rocks in his pockets. He does not text, but when he visits, he sits beside me on the porch and shows me his newest rocks and explains where he found them and what kind they are. And I listen with the same attention I used to give to Gerald's loud stories and Linda's careful observations. Because attention is love. It always has been. And Oliver. My Oliver. He is 6 now. He has Gerald's big emotions and Diane's sharp eyes and Walter's ears, those big, wonderful, slightly too large ears that I loved on my husband and love even more on my grandson. He is loud and curious and completely impossible to ignore. And every 2 weeks, when he runs through my front door and shouts, "Grandma Ruthie, I am here," I feel the house come alive. I feel the walls remember what they were built for. I feel the silence retreat, just for a moment, just long enough to remind me that this house was never meant to be quiet. It was meant to be full. I am 76 years old. I live alone. My husband is gone. My children are grown. My body is slower than it used to be, and my memory is not as sharp, and there are mornings when getting out of bed feels like the hardest thing I will do all day. But I am not invisible. Not anymore. I was invisible for a while. For 4 long, painful, quiet years, I was the chair that was removed from the table, the name that was left off the list, the grandmother who existed in theory but not in practice. And that invisibility nearly destroyed me. Not my body, my spirit. The part of me that believed I mattered. The part of me that believed love was enough to keep a family together. Love is not enough. I know that now. Love is necessary, but it is not enough. You also need courage. The courage to speak when speaking is hard. The courage to say, "I deserve better," when every instinct tells you to stay quiet and keep the peace. The courage to write a letter that might not be answered. The courage to stand at a mailbox and let go of your last hope and trust that the truth is stronger than the fear. My mother was right about one thing. A family is not something you are given. It is something you build. And sometimes, after you build it, the people inside it forget to maintain it. They let the roof leak and the walls crack and the foundation shift. And it falls apart, not from a storm, from neglect, from the quiet, daily choice to look away instead of looking closely. But here is what my mother did not tell me. A family can be rebuilt. Not the same way, not in the same shape, not without scars and cracks and places where the repair is visible, but it can be rebuilt. If the people inside it are willing to pick up the pieces, if they are willing to say, "I am sorry," if they are willing to show up. Not once, not when it is convenient, but again and again and again until showing up becomes a habit and the habit becomes a home. I have my family back, not perfectly, but truly. And I hold them now the way you hold something that was lost and found again, carefully, gratefully, with the full knowledge that having it is a gift and losing it is always possible. Every morning, I wake up and I walk to the mantelpiece. I pick up the photograph, the one from 23 years ago, the one with 6 faces and 1 frame, and I look at it, and I remember the noise, the chaos, the love that was so big it could barely fit inside these walls. Then I set the photograph down, and I walk to the kitchen, and I make my tea, and I sit in my chair and I look out the window, and I wait, not the old kind of waiting, the desperate, lonely, hope against hope waiting of a woman who was not sure anyone was coming. A new kind of waiting, a patient, peaceful, trusting kind. The kind that knows the phone will ring, the kind that knows the door will open, the kind that knows that somewhere, right now, a little boy with big ears is counting the days until he can run through that door and shout, "Grandma Ruthie, I am here, and I will be here." Right here, where I have always been, where I will always be, with the door open and the tea warm and the chair waiting and the love, so much love, more than one old woman should be able to hold, ready to be given. Because that is what grandmothers do. We wait, we love, we forgive, and when the family finally comes home, we open our arms and take them in, all of them. Every piece, every scar, sorry, we take them in, and we hold on, and we never, ever let go. A family does not break because someone stops loving, it breaks because someone stops showing up. And it heals the same way, not with a single grand gesture, but with the simple, stubborn act of showing up, again and again and again, until showing up becomes the only thing that matters.